Welcome to Democratic Television, a program of the Santa Clara County Democratic Party that brings insights, perspectives, and attitudes of our always thoughtful Democratic guests. Today we're joined by Mountain View Councilwoman Margaret Abe-Koga. Margaret, thanks for being on Democratic Television again.
Thank you for having me, Steve. It's always great to be here.
Well, it's great to have you, and it's great to be able to film our show in the studios here in Mountain View.
Yes.
You guys have great facilities and a real care about the public airwaves.
Absolutely. We're very proud to have KMBT in our community. It's very active, and the community really appreciates it.
Yeah.
And I think it's important, so go public access.
Well, people are getting more wired, and people don't necessarily watch things in the traditional fashion, and your studio and station allows people to see more and more.
Absolutely, and it gives members of the community an opportunity to voice their opinions and to share information, and I think that's wonderful, especially in this age when it's all about information, right?
And it's about sharing your opinion.
Yes,
people like
that's
that
true too.
Anyway, I wanted to talk to you about a number of things. You're on the city council, you've been the mayor, you've been on the Valley Transportation Authority. You recently got appointed to an important commission by the governor. But before we get into that, let's talk about the early years. You grew up around here, went to schools.
Yes, I grew up in San Mateo, so I was born just up the way at Stanford Hospital. Grew up in San Mateo. My parents are immigrants from Japan, so they're working class. My dad was a gardener, and my mom did odd jobs here and there. They never really picked up the language, and so as soon as I could speak English, I was their translator, and I'm an only child, so that was my job. A lot of translations. So I think I had to grow up early as a result. And, I saw good and some of the not so good parts of our society, and learned about discrimination pretty early on. And we struggled through to get by. I know my parents worked really hard, but it was challenging for them. So those were some of the experiences that I think really propelled me to work towards principles such as equity and justice and civil rights, which has been a big priority of mine.
Well, I think that's why you have such a big following.
Oh, well, thank you.
Well, no, thank you. So you went to public schools, and your folks, it sounds like, placed a premium on education, and you're doing well. And you ended up going to school, I think, with the president.
I guess so. We're a few years apart.
Yeah, I know he's a number of years older than you, but so, you both went to Harvard.
That's right,
well,
yes.
You went to Harvard.
And I studied American government, so I was trying to think of when I got involved, and it was student government that I got really excited about in school. And it was, I think, my third grade elementary school teacher urged me to run. It was for school class treasurer at that time, and I ran against my best friend, but it's interesting because I found she's now a newscaster on Channel 5 News, Jean Ellie, and I lost to her. But that was okay, and I kept going. And so I was on student government, and then I was on the city's youth advisory commission, and that's when I met my future boss, Congresswoman, then County Supervisor Anna Eshoo, and she was a real inspiration to me too. So I went and studied American government at Harvard.
Wow.
And then came home and didn't really know what I was going to do with it, but things really worked out. So she was running for Congress, and I volunteered for her, and then when she was elected, I was able to go work for her for several years. So.
Well, I know she's always had a tradition of activism. She was the former Democratic Party chair in San Mateo County.
That's right.
As you mentioned, served on the Board of Supervisors, and then felt that Congress was really her calling, and has made great contributions ever since.
Definitely. She's a true role model, especially for us women.
Mm-hmm. So you didn't work there forever. You're not there
No.
now. So what were your next steps?
After 6 years, I decided it was time to try something else, and I decided I kind of fell into running a small business for a couple of years, indoor cycling, a spinning fitness studio. And then I was doing that part-time, and then also I went to help Michael Chang in Cupertino at De Anza College
Yeah,
to
sure, his
start
program.
up the Asian Pacific American Leadership Institute. That fell in line with some of the things that I cared about. So I did both at the same time, and then I decided it was time for us to start a family. So I had my first child and decided to take some time off and be a mom.
Well, you were involved in some other stuff then, the starting of the APA Democratic Club, too.
Yes,
You're the
yes.
founding member, chair, and all that.
Yes, and we just celebrated our 16th anniversary of the club, and we had a big event, and it was really great to see like hundreds of people come out. And I remember in the beginning it was Paul Fong and Michael Chang and Peter Chu has been very active, longtime activist in the Democratic Party, and a handful of us, and to see it now grow and we have a lot of young people coming in, and that's really what it's all about, is to encourage Asian Americans, and especially young Asian Americans, to get involved in the political process in the Democratic Party, and then hopefully some of them will think about running for office down the road. So definitely encouraged me to do that. I had no real interest in or desire in running, but
You mean not after that third grade election for treasurer?
Exactly, yes. I think I have about a 500 batting average when it comes to elections. It might be better now,
I
but
think.
so I think it's really been instrumental in getting a lot of Asian American electeds in office. So if you run down through the lists we have, I'd say we've probably helped at least 90% of them get into office.
Well, that's great.
Yes,
That's
yes.
a wonderful change from what you saw growing up, where you saw discrimination, and now you're started a club, worked for great leaders, and it's a whole new ball game.
It is. It definitely is, and I think this county is really very progressive in that sense, and really embracing diversity.
So you were a small business owner, and later ran for city council. Did your small business experience help inform you some of the sensitivities to businesses? We hear that business and government sometimes don't always mesh as well as they could, and you were involved in both.
Absolutely. In addition to just my experience, my husband is in the high-tech world, and he started up a little company right out of after he graduated from Stanford.
Out of his garage?
It wasn't quite the garage, but it was probably our kitchen to start out. So that really was helpful, especially being here in Silicon Valley, to have a firsthand experience of what it means to be an entrepreneur and to try to start a business. And what I really learned was how hard it is, actually. And there are some there's red tape that I think could be cut. And so when I came into council, and I knew how important business is for our communities. It's really, what the revenue gives us, the revenue for cities to be able to provide services. So we need to really value that and to work in partnership with businesses so that they can succeed and thrive, because that in turn helps our cities to be able to continue to do the work that we do and provide the services that we're supposed to provide. So.
Now, on your way up to becoming a council person, you spent time on the Human Relations Commission in the city.
Yes, so I was on the Human Relations Commission, and I actually also was elected to the Santa Clara County Board of Education and served a term there before I ran. And then, as I ran once for council and didn't quite make it. Didn't make it by 105 votes. No one's counting. But after that, I was appointed to the Planning Commission and served a couple of years there. That was very valuable, I think, to my understanding. A lot of what we do on council is land use, especially in Mountain View. We've had construct development. Even during the economic, downturn, Mountain View, we've been able to continue to, to develop and to grow. And so understanding land use is really, I think, key to being able to serve on the council.
Well, and you've had a lot of land east of Bayshore that I think, we've seen huge developments, high tech and
Yes.
other developments that or companies that didn't work out and sold to
That's
companies
right.
like Google.
That's
That
right.
that story is way different.
Yeah, I like to think of Mountain View as really the heart of Silicon Valley. There's debate about where the birthplace was, but we're part of that. And I think as a city, we've done a good job of trying to encourage business development and entrepreneurship. And in addition to the big companies we have, like Google and Microsoft, if you go downtown, there are hundreds of little startups. And so a lot of these big companies have really birthed from downtown Mountain View, and that's exciting to see too. So.
Well, and speaking of downtown, it's hard not to comment on Castro Street and the restaurants and the thriving downtown you have there.
Yes, and I really credit my predecessors for that, to have the vision to create the downtown. They created a downtown revitalization district, and through that we're able to make downtown what it is. And our job has just been to try to continue that, and I think we've been able to do so. So we have over 100 restaurants now. And sometimes I forget how lucky I am until I leave Mountain View and realize it's not like this everywhere.
Not like that everywhere at all.
But we have that and the startups, and so it's a real nice mix we have.
Well, so far so good.
So far so good.
And you have two daughters. They're in the public schools.
Yes. So my first daughter, she's now in middle school, 6th grade, and then my younger one's in 3rd grade. And it was when I had my first daughter that I really thought it was time for me to step up and run for office, because I thought it wasn't so much just about me anymore, but about her future and their futures. And so that's when I ran for the County Board of Education.
And won.
And won, yes. And so even on the council, youth services, working with our school district has been a priority for me. When I ran, I saw a council that didn't really represent young families. There wasn't anyone with a young family on there, and so I thought it was important to have that voice on council. And I've tried to work. I've worked hard to try to make sure that that voice is heard. So.
Well, very good. We're going to take a little break right now.
Great.
When we come back, more Margaret Abe-Koga.
I'm United States Senator Barbara Boxer. Thank you for watching Democratic Television.
Welcome back to Democratic Television and our guest, Margaret Abe-Koga. Margaret, we were talking about your various aspects of your background that have led you to be who you are now. You've done other things, though. You're currently serving on the Valley Transportation Authority Board. You've been there. You've been the chair. Tell us a little bit about the importance of the VTA.
So as a council member, we all are appointed to regional bodies to represent our cities. And so my first year, I was appointed as Mountain View's representative to what's called the Policy Advisory Committee of the VTA. So I served there for, I think it was 2 or 3 years, and then was promoted to then serve on the board. And I came on and immediately was elected vice chair of the board. And then last year I served as chair. And
this is a board with, what, 15, 20, 135 members? Or
it's a board of 12 members. So 5 from San Jose council members, and then 2 from the county, and then 5 from what they call the small cities. So they divide us into different groupings, and then from those groupings, one is selected to represent that grouping. So I was chosen from what was then called the North County grouping, and then immediately, as soon as I got on, on. They do a rotation, and it was the small city's turn to be vice chair. So I went for that and was elected to do that. It was actually quite a eye opener, and just I came in and immediately, the VTA was facing a deficit of $40 million, and so that was really the work of my first year was
Wow.
we had a budget task force and to figure out how we were going to close that gap. Unfortunately, with the economic downturn, ridership was also drops, and it's interesting to see how ridership is very connected to the unemployment rate.
Oh, wow.
And then a lot of the funding that VTA gets is from sales tax. So as that dropped, then
Yeah.
that caused it a hole. But fortunately, we worked hard and we figured out some ways to change some of our policies, and we ended up actually creating a new reserve fund so that we wouldn't have this problem in the future. And we have a wonderful general manager, very Michael Burns, and very intelligent, and had a lot of great suggestions. And we did a lot of lobbying. We went and asked for funds from the state and the federal government, and our big project has been the BART project, the BART
Yeah.
extension. And we were just recently last year awarded federal funding for that of up to $1 billion, and that is being matched by local funds when we passed a measure a few years back to to help fund the extension. So that project is moving along. I think it might even be ahead of schedule. We've broken ground. It's coming through Fremont into the Berryessa part of San Jose. That's the first phase. And so that's moving along very quickly. I'm happy to say ridership is up, and I think there's a correlation with gas prices too. So as a gallon of gas the other day was $4.65 when I filled up. That's encouraging people to take transit, and I think that's important just in terms of our environment as well, is to for sustainability. This area is growing. We need to figure out how to move people around in a much more efficient manner that will also lower our carbon footprint, and transit is really the way to go. So we run light rail, we run the bus service here, and we're working on BART. We also do a lot of the congestion management. So building the highway, improvements and whatnot. We've just recently introduced express lanes on the moving 237/85, and that's where you can use the carpool lanes. The single riders can use them by paying a certain pricing, and that even too. At first, we had a lot of opposition on that, but it's actually working. And so the people in the lanes are going faster to where they want to go, and the folks not using the lanes are also going faster. So it's alleviated some congestion there. So.
And the people in those lanes are helping pay for the ability to do that.
Yes, so it's priced according to the number of people in
Congestion.
Exactly. It's called congestion pricing.
Great
and
name.
Then, so that's helping us to provide more funding to hopefully be able to provide more transit services to the population.
So I imagine being on the VTA board has given you a broader perspective than just the city of Mountain View.
Definitely.
And I know you've been interested in perhaps serving on the Board of Supervisors, which gets into a whole nother set of issues, priorities, and commitments to that sense of justice that you mentioned earlier.
Yes, so from the City Council, I've had the opportunity to sit on some of these regional boards, including VTA and a few others, and that's really helped me to get a broader perspective and just realizing that a lot of our issues were tied to each other, and they really need to be worked on regionally. Like one city alone can't solve congestion or whatnot. And so I did look to and was running briefly for the County Board of Supervisors, District 5 seat late last year into early this year. I started at the county in a way. I was an intern there for Anna Eshoo in San Mateo County as a college student, and I really enjoyed the issues there. I think it really goes back to, my passions about human services, health and human services, and being able to help those who need help the most. So I did, the Liz Nis is being termed out, and so I decided to run. My campaign was cut a bit short, and I did end up withdrawing at the beginning of this year when State Senator Joe Simitian entered the race. And Joe and I've known Joe for pretty much my entire political career, and he and his wife, Mary Hughes, have been very supportive of me over the years. And so, when Joe decided to try to come back to the county, it seemed like the right thing for me to do, to withdraw and to support him. And I know he's going to do a great job, so I'm very happy to support him.
Well, those issues will always be out there, and they involve the safety net, the health system, the judicial system, corrections,
Yes.
and all that. So there's a lot of stuff out there that, while you may not work on it directly, I'm sure you'll find other ways to make contributions.
Yes, definitely. I think there are a lot of opportunities, and again, city, county, we all have to work hand in hand together on these issues. So I, plan to continue to do that for the rest of my time on the city council. I have 2 more years, and then hopefully we'll be able to try to do something else too, even beyond that.
So you have, I think, been served well by mentors and people that have inspired you. Yes. Are you involved in any programs, formal or otherwise, to bring in other young people? I know your APA Democratic Club is working to bring in another generation of youth.
Yes, so that has been very important to me, especially now as I get close to the end of my term. I think it's important to find succession as well. We talk about building a pipeline, and we've tried to do that with our Democratic Club, and I think we've made a lot of progress there. So I personally have tried to reach out to young folks that I meet during my time and in my work. I love going to speak at high schools and colleges. Even on council, I've been on we have a youth services committee of the council. So we have a youth advisory committee that we work with. And then lately I've taken on a couple of mentees. There's a New Leaders Council. It's an organization that encourages young people to get involved. And through that I serve as a mentor to a young individual who's looking to hopefully get run for office down the road. So
well, that's very cool.
It's exciting.
I think the question for all of us, though, is how do we find a sort of a work-life, personal life balance and be able to be ourselves, make the world a better place, and then still be good role models, great spouses, great parents, and all that.
Yeah, I think that's the key, and it's it's definitely challenging to be a mother of young kids, to serve on council, which often is 20, 30, 40 hours a week. And I've actually recently taken on a new job, a part-time job. I serve as a corporate and foundation relations manager for Asian Americans for community involvement. So I'm trying to juggle a few balls in the air. I think the key is to have a very supportive spouse.
Oh,
and,
A1.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he has been throughout this time. And my kids too, they seem to understand what mom does, and sometimes it's a little challenging when mom's not home to do help with homework or to tuck them in, but I try to bring them out to some of the events, and I think they really appreciate what it means to be involved with the community and how important it is to give back. And so that's the best thing I can do, is to instill those ideals in my kids, and hope that they will continue on with that too.
So let me ask you this question. It seems to me that you're very involved. You really get it. You're dedicated. You're optimistic. Do you have a sense of optimism about the future, locally or nationally? Do you think Do you think we're going to make it? Do you think the political process is going to survive the budget deficits, the clashing?
I do. I do. I think you have to be optimistic to do what we do, because you honestly, oftentimes you hear more of the complaints or the negatives than
Yeah.
the positive. But when you get that one, that one thing you've been working for accomplished, or you once in a while you do get compliments, and that's what really keeps you going, and it gives me hope. And I am very hopeful, and it is part of our process, but we're lucky to have this process. At least we can voice our opinions and have these discussions
Yeah.
and debates, and that's what we're all about here. And I think we're very fortunate to have that. So better to have that, and better to have those clashes than to just be completely suppressed. And when we go back and I think about my upbringing, it means so much to me to be able to feel like you have the right to speak up or to get involved. If you're not happy, get involved and do something about it. And to just have that opportunity to do that is invaluable. So I'm very hopeful. I think we'll get through it. I think we can get through anything, really. So we just have to keep working together.
Sounds like you're saying if people step up, it'll work out.
I think so. I think so.
Well, we have about 30 seconds left. If someone wanted to get hold of you, is there a website they could go to learn more, to communicate with you directly?
Definitely. I would love to hear from folks. That's what helps me to make the decisions that I have to make. And I just love to learn about what's going on in the community. So best place to reach me would be through our city website, www.mountainview.gov. And if there's a link to the city council, and you can actually just scroll down and email me directly from there. So
Great.
I look forward to hearing from folks.
Great.
And thank you. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you, Margaret. Thanks for watching Democratic Television. Give us a call at 408-445-9500 or visit our website, www.sccdp.org, and help make a difference.